An effort to stop the deportation of an asylum seeker who fears for his life.
I miss my dad a lot. And please don't deport my dad. I gave him a chance to stay with us.
Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the push by the father's family and community to keep him in the U.S. Plus, Pacific Gas and Electric admits it's likely its equipment started the devastating Camp Fire in Northern California. The full statement from the embattled company. And hundreds of wounded warriors are coming to town to compete in a sports event. We have a live report on the competition. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It is Thursday, February 28th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. As soon as tomorrow, a father of 7 from the Democratic Republic of Congo may be sent back to a country where he fears he'll be killed. His family is pleading for help. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero was at the downtown rally.
The family of Constantine Bakala gathered downtown to submit a petition with the federal government, with nearly 500 signatures. It asked for Bakala not to be deported. His children made flyers in support of their father. The family fled the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2017 after they say they were tortured and poisoned because of Bakala's calls for democracy. After a harrowing months-long journey through some of Latin America's most dangerous countries, the family was separated upon arrival in the U.S. Bakala was put in detention while his wife and kids were released on parole. His 15-year-old daughter, Marie-Louise, spoke.
I miss my dad a lot. And please don't deport my dad. I gave him a chance to stay with us.
Fathers are often prioritized for detention. His asylum petition was rejected, his family says, because he couldn't get an attorney while in detention until months into his case. He's been detained for 15 months and faces imminent deportation. His wife, Annie Buetu Kapongo, also spoke.
I feel like I'm not myself. Please give me the strength.
The family's attorney filed requests for emergency stays on his deportation and a motion to reopen the case. They expect an answer by Friday. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Bakala came through the San Ysidro port of entry. He's currently being detained in Virginia. Roughly 200 wounded warriors are coming to San Diego this week to compete in an adaptive sports event. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh is live at Camp Pendleton, where he had the chance to see some of these Marines, sailors, and vets in action. Hi, Steve.
That's right, Ebony. We're here on Camp Pendleton at the Page Fieldhouse. You can see behind me a very spirited game of wheelchair basketball is going on. This is the practice sessions for the Marine Corps Trials Adaptive Sports Invitational here. The games won't begin actually until Saturday, but obviously people are here practicing. We're going to be talking to a couple of the organizers here in just a minute. But first, earlier in the day, we had a chance to go out and talk to some of the other athletes that are already here at Camp Pendleton. Doctors are still trying to find the cause of the tumor on Annika Hutzler's leg. In the meantime, she's using Wounded Warriors as kind of a surrogate family.
The Marine Corps in general, but especially in Wounded Warrior Battalion, having that support, because you don't always get support from your family or from your doctors per se, but you always have the support of people who understand what it's like to be in the military and become wounded, ill, or injured.
Corporal Jay Phillips is trying to work through his traumatic brain injury. In the meantime, Wounded Warrior Games allows him to break up some of the monotony of going from doctor to doctor to doctor.
That's the best part, being able to see people that have issues that most people would think, this ruined my life, I can't do anything now, and then seeing guys and girls come out here and do the stuff they do, it shows a lot, and it's like, hey, you know, life's not all what happened to me. I have a lot more that I can do with it.
Fieldhouse here on Camp Pendleton. We have a couple of the organizers here. We have Carrie Rogers. She's the Marine Corps Trials Director. And then we also have Anthony McDaniel, who is a Marine Corps vet himself and one of the coaches here. So, Carrie, first to you. Tell me, how big this seems like kind of a big event here. You have hundreds of athletes coming in. Tell me about it.
We do. This is our 9th year that the Wounded Warrior Regiment has hosted the Marine Corps Trials, and we have 180 participants, which includes active duty, veterans, and internationals.
Right, you've got veterans from around the world. These are not just American. Most of these are Marines from the East and West Coast and the Wounded Warrior Regiments, but then you have athletes from around the world.
Yes, we have Colombia, France, Germany, Netherlands, and the UK participating with us.
All right. So Anthony, tell me a little bit about wheelchair basketball here. How competitive is this?
It's very competitive. Basically, just like stand-up basketball, the only difference is there's no double dribble being in wheelchairs. But, I mean, everybody goes out, give 110%, just like they would do in any other able-bodied sport.
You want to talk a little bit about your injury? How did you get here?
So 2010, I was in Kajak, Afghanistan. I got injured by an IED on August 31st. Lost both of my legs, my hand, right on the impact. From then, I jumped right into rehab at Walter Reed. Did that for about a month or two. And then I was transferred back to San Diego, where I met most of these guys playing wheelchair basketball here. We started a team down in San Diego, and then from then on, we just kept building up and just trying to gain knowledge from the sport and get as best as we can.
So, given what you've been through, it feels like wheelchair basketball is like trivial compared to what you've had to go through. But why is it important for these guys and men and women to get back out here and start competing again?
First and foremost, it's just good physical fitness, so you can get out here, get some good conditioning in, good cardio, and just make sure you keep yourself in great shape. And also, it's great for teamwork. So, we come in from a place of rehab, individual, and now we're coming into a team environment. So everybody's working together, learning each other's strengths, weaknesses, and stuff like that. So it translates from not only on the court, but out into the civilian world as well.
So competition is really going to get underway on Saturday. What's that going to look like?
It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, everybody's going to be enjoying it. You got everybody from developing to intermediate to some of them going into high performance, maybe in a few years, just depending on how far they want to take their individual or team event. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good competition, but most of all, it's going to be a lot of camaraderie because everybody's going to be cheering each other on because even though we compete against each other, everybody is always looking to see each other do well as well. So.
Excellent, Anthony. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service, not only here, but here out on the court today. Again, Ebony, we're here at the Page Fieldhouse at Camp Pendleton. I'm going to make sure I have the name right here. The Marine Corps Trials Adaptive Sports Invitational competition starts on Saturday, runs through next week. Back to you, Ebony.
Thanks, Steve. Access Youth Academy uses the game of squash to help San Diego students go to college. The nonprofit touts a 100% graduation rate and college acceptance rate. Now it's set to expand its efforts to San Diego's Choice View neighborhood. This grass field here at Euclid Avenue will be the program's new athletic and academic facility. Access Youth leaders say often college squash scholarships go unused, so teaching students the sports gives them a shot at a full ride. Currently, kids practice at UC San Diego. This new facility will give them a chance to practice and study closer to home and allow the program to accept hundreds of more students. We spoke to representatives from the Alliance Healthcare Foundation and Mission Driven Finance about why it was important to invest in the $12 million project.
They change the lives of the people that they enroll in their program. And not just the lives of the individual participants, but also their siblings, their families, their community, the kids they go to school with. All of a sudden, there's hope.
Their track record of having 100% success in high school graduation and 100% of their students going on to college is markedly different than the rest of their peers. So we thought this was a great way to expand an existing proven program.
Since opening in 2006, Access Youth leaders say participating students have earned more than $6 million in scholarships. Now, an update on a story we brought you last week. KPBS partner iNewsSource reported Palomar College is remodeling part of its new $67 million library to give the school's president a top-floor office suite. However, it's costing taxpayers nearly $1 million. iNewsSource now reports the committee overseeing the spending of the funds will meet Friday to rethink that decision. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. San Diego State University has picked a contractor to oversee construction of a multi-use sports stadium in Mission Valley. The same company that built San Diego's Petco Park will work with San Diego State University to build a new 35,000-seat facility for football, soccer, concerts, and other events. Clark Construction will help identify a stadium architect, and then the company will build the facility. The contract is worth $250 million. SDSU hopes to begin construction in 2020. PG&E admits that it likely caused California's most destructive wildfire. In a statement today, Pacific Gas and Electric said it's probable its equipment will be found to be the cause of the 2018 Camp Fire. The blaze destroyed about 19,000 buildings and killed more than 80 people. At least 20 lawsuits have been filed against PG&E, accusing the company of negligence for not safely maintaining its equipment. PG&E recently filed for bankruptcy, saying it's the only way it could deal with the billions of dollars in potential liability. Now lawmakers want to make sure the power company doesn't pass its expense over to consumers.
That's why they filed for bankruptcy, because they knew the cost of this and the liability would exceed what they have. But the sad part is, by going into bankruptcy, they potentially will prevent those victims of those fires from getting just compensation at the end. And that's the part that's tragic about this.
Lawmakers say in recent years, PG&E promised to make safety changes to its equipment, but never did. The company discussed switching wood power poles over to steel or underground power lines. Despite being given funds to make those changes, PG&E failed to do so.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a summit stalemate. Talks between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un collapse. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
President Trump walks away from his second summit with Kim Jong-un without a deal. Trump spoke today in Vietnam after the meeting with the North Korean leader ended abruptly. The president wanted complete denuclearization from North Korea, while North Korea wanted all U.S. sanctions lifted. President Trump said the deal wasn't right, so he decided to walk.
Always have to be prepared to walk. I could have signed an agreement today, and then you people would have said, oh, what a terrible deal, what a terrible thing he did. No, you have to be prepared to walk. And, there was a potential we could have signed something today. I could have 100% signed something today. We actually had papers ready to be signed, but it just wasn't appropriate. I want to do it right. I'd much rather do it right than do it fast.
The president also addressed Michael Cohen's testimony, dismissing it as nothing more than fiction.
I wasn't able to watch too much because I've been a little bit busy. But I think having a fake hearing like that and having it in the middle of this very important summit is really a terrible thing. They could have made it 2 days later or next week, and it would have been even better. They would have had more time. But having it during this very important summit is sort of incredible. And he lied a lot, but it was very interesting because he didn't lie about one thing. He said no collusion with the Russian hoax. And I said, I wonder why he didn't just lie about that too, like he did about everything else.
Today was the final day of hearings for Cohen. He has already been sentenced to 3 years in prison for lying to Congress. The VA has implemented a new law designed to speed up the appeals process for disability claims. Veterans now often have to wait years for a decision following an appeal. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh talked to veterans who have experienced those delays and who are hopeful yet skeptical about these changes.
A group of vets gathered at the American Legion post in San Diego to talk about their sometimes frustrating relationship with the VA benefit system. Sam Flores is the vice commander. After 13 years in the Marine Corps, he was medically retired in 2010 after an IED blast in Afghanistan.
I was in the back of a vehicle, and next thing I knew, I was outside of the vehicle. But
did everybody live?
Some.
I'm sorry, some?
Some. It was pretty drastic.
6 people in the convoy died. Flores is still undergoing surgery, but even an obvious disability case like his can take years to resolve. First, veterans have to prove their disability is tied to their military service. Then, the VA has a complex system to rate how disabled the veteran is. Flores says the VA initially determined the blast left him 10% disabled.
And I thought that was it, and then eventually spoke to somebody when I came into a post, and they said, you should be getting a lot more. I didn't know what that meant. I was just trying to survive.
Flores appealed, but the VA estimates it takes 3 to 7 years for veterans to work their way through the appeals process. Part of the reason for hundreds of thousands of VA benefit appeals claims is the legacy of war in Iraq and Afghanistan. But the VA is also flooded with new claims from Vietnam. Rick Bridges was a bomber pilot in Vietnam. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1999 after his wife noticed something while they were on the beach.
I was out jogging with my wife one day, and I fell on the sand. I didn't know what happened, and she turned around and said, "You have trouble keeping up."
The VA didn't recognize Parkinson's as a byproduct of exposure to the defoliant Agent Orange until 2010. Bridges is in a wheelchair now. Like a lot of vets, he has to file a claim each time his condition gets worse, so his benefits reflect his new disability level. Other kinds of claims take years to pursue. Mary Jane Fisher was in the Navy from 1980 to 1992. She's seeking disability claims for MST, military sexual trauma. One of her shore duties was to inspect barracks.
You had a billy club. So rape happened, MST happened, and the rest of it you can leave to your imagination. You could report it, and it could be ripped out of a logbook, and you could prove it, and it wouldn't show up in the medical record, and things like that occurred.
She says it happened to her. And to top it off, over the years, Fisher says the VA would lose paperwork, including records they had during earlier appeals.
I'm still fighting it.
So they haven't.
It's not resolved.
The volume of claims in the system has bogged down the appeals process, says Dave McClinican, who runs the VA's Appeals Management Office.
And over time, our inventory of appeals just kept growing and growing and growing. You just can't keep throwing more resources at it. At some point, you've got to revamp the system to make sure it's more modern, and that's essentially what we did.
In 2017, Congress passed a law to modernize the VA benefits appeals process. The new system is now just coming online. The law requires the VA to decide appeals within 125 days. To meet that goal, the VA has added 605 employees to the 2,100 who review benefit claims. Casey Davis works with the American Legion to guide vets through the process. He's worried the VA won't make its aggressive targets.
Overall, what you have is a VA system that is trying to upgrade, and they waited too long to do it. They're trying to do it in the middle of a war that was not expected to drag on and generate hundreds of thousands of more claims.
Even so, the hope is thousands of veterans who are waiting for appeals may finally be close to getting an answer. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Veterans filing appeals will now use the new system, which officially went live last week. Sully, the service dog who symbolized devotion by lying next to President George H.W. Bush's casket, has a new mission. The 2-year-old yellow Labrador retriever has joined Walter Reed National Military Medical Center's dog program to help wounded veterans. Sully received a new vest and is now considered a member of the Navy.
Each hour he touches 12 lives, so he's going to touch thousands upon thousands of lives here at Walter Reed.
Sully served President Bush for 6 months until the former president died in November. California will apparently have a healthy water year, according to officials today. The Department of Water Resources conducted the third snow survey of the winter just north of Sacramento at the Phillips Station. The survey recorded 113 inches of snow, more than double what was recorded last month at the same location. Officials say snow levels are also expected to increase as winter storms continue.
Most of our state's reservoirs are at or above 100% of their historical average, and this healthy snowpack we're seeing here today is great for our reservoir storage throughout the state. It's excellent news.
The Sierra snowpack supplies about 30% of the state's water supply as it melts in the spring, so it's very important. Rain is coming to San Diego again, and it will be sticking around for a while. Meteorologist Dajia Swad has the forecast.
As we continue through tonight, more clouds here in San Diego County. Precipitation stays to the north, and you can see that on the satellite and radar from several hours ago. We're looking at more clouds coming on in ahead of our next storm system that we'll be talking about here in just a second. Looking at a low of 55 here in San Diego, cooling down to 49 in Oceanside and 53 for Borrego Springs. Mount Laguna cooling down to 41. Moving into tomorrow, your highs in the 60s. Near the coast. So for Oceanside, a high of 64, San Diego, a high of 66, and topping off in the upper 70s for Borrego Springs, 54 for Mount Laguna, with clouds also extending out towards the mountain areas. Now, we start the day off dry, but clouds will continue to increase, and then Friday night and the Saturday, this will be tracking out our next storm system. This is going to be plenty of rain across California, as well as snow, and even the chance for some wintry precipitation into Nevada. Now, we will be talking about travel disruptions as well as a strong wind out of the west for San Diego County for Saturday afternoon into Saturday night, especially in towards the mountains and deserts. Now for your weekend forecast, Saturday, best day for this wet weather. We'll continue to see some spotty activity as that low pressure tracks its way to the east, and then we'll dry out for a brief period of time before we talk about some more wet weather as we head into the midweek. So for the coast, the next several days, temperatures in the lower 60s for your highs, then in the upper 60s by Tuesday. But Saturday, Sunday is where we talk about wet conditions. Saturday being the heavy day for that rain. Looking at a ½ an inch possible here across the coast. Inland also going to be looking at downpours, bringing in some cooler air and continuing to see some of that rain into your Sunday as well as you head inland. Then drying out into Monday and continuing to be on the drier side Tuesday, but another storm system will be approaching. And so the mountains, well, not going to see too much in the way of precipitation for Saturday or Sunday. In fact, cooler here with highs in the upper 40s. But you will, as you head into the higher elevation, 7,000 feet and above, better chance for some precipitation to be seen. Deserts also going to be limited with that moisture at this point in time in the forecast. Not as warm, though, with highs in the lower 70s. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your AccuWeather meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
The La Jolla Playhouse is about to open the highly anticipated musical Diana. The show examines the marriage of Princess Diana and Prince Charles, complete with 80s fashion and hairstyles. KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin gives us a preview.
I am Christopher Ashley, the artistic director of La Jolla Playhouse and also the director of Diana. This show very much centers around the marriage, which she called a crowded marriage, because Charles was really very much in love with Camilla Parker Bowles while he was dating and then married to Diana. So it really centers around the triangle between those three. And our goal is very much not to find villains, but to figure out how did these three people try to figure out a route through this incredibly difficult marriage in the midst of this white-hot media spotlight.
My name is Kelly Devine, and I'm the choreographer for Diana. The best way to describe trying to tell the life of Diana through dance is different situations that she's been in, whether it was a date with Prince Charles, and finding what her perspective was in that moment.
I think everybody has a relationship to their memory of Diana. One of my first, absolutely that sort of wedding seared itself into my imagination. I think everybody kind of shares that picture in their head. Also, kind of early days of the AIDS crisis, she was one of the very first people who was willing to kind of go into those hospital rooms, hold the babies, skin-to-skin touch, and she was so unafraid, and I think had a huge impact in terms of cutting through the fear that swirled around that.
She shined a light on so many issues, like one particularly with the AIDS crisis in the 80s. I was a really young performer, but I lost a lot of friends to AIDS at the time, and it was really horrible. And she was very outspoken about getting care and awareness. The character Diana does dance. She dances because she needs to express herself, and I think maybe, in the confines of the royal family, I'm sure a lot of that felt a little stifled. So we go sort of into her mind, and she gets to unleash her dance beast, if you will. I definitely gave a nod to the 80s, a bit of an homage. So you could see, if you're looking really hard, you'll see some influences of maybe some really popular dance crazes that were happening sort of in the 80s, but it's just like a whisper. It's just a little Easter egg.
I think the interest in Diana has really not faded. I mean, she's been gone for a couple of decades, and she's still front page news every day.
Diana runs through April 14th at the La Jolla Playhouse. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.